The history behind these two sections generally is that in the late 80s and early 90s the city struggled with some large parties that featured, among other things, large groups of people walking through the streets and transporting with them alcoholic beverages, many times that were open, while they went from one party to another. And that behavior, which was part of a larger phenomena, created law enforcement issues. And these two code sections were adopted as one item in response to those large parties that featured, among other things, the transportation of alcohol across the streets and down the alleys with people drinking. And we had quite a challenge to address those issues, but the city addressed them and we moved past those. These two code provisions remain on the books and they still remain an important tool for law enforcement, but they were adopted as misdemeanors, and as I've prosecuted these over the years and watched how this situation has changed, I became convinced that it no longer needed to be a misdemeanor, either one of these. It could be civil infractions. The officers can still make the stop, still write a ticket, still curtail the behavior, but without the criminal conviction associated with it, then people with these infractions on their record won't have negative employment consequences. So it just seemed to me that it was time to ask the Commission to make these two violations civil infractions rather than misdemeanors. I considered it for the last few years. We didn't rush into this. Checked with Department of Public Safety, the officers, the director, the former director, to see if there was going to be any objection from the police that this was a powerful tool that they needed to have as a misdemeanor and the power to arrest. I haven't gotten any objections or any input saying, no, 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 we have to have it a misdemeanor. So for those reasons, I prepared the ordinance that would modify these two code sections and make them municipal civil infractions rather than misdemeanors.
I was approached by several officers on a shift, I'd say a month or two ago, and it was their suggestion as well that it be modified, changed to a civil infraction instead of a misdemeanor. It was very useful at one time, but it doesn't seem to be necessary now, so I agree 100%.
The only thing I would say is that as this word of this change is disseminated, because those things get passed around university community quite readily, I wouldn't want somebody to think that we had changed the impact or import of this simply because we changed the penalty. Because I do know of lots of people who have, because I work with students who come from another community where this isn't a problem, they do this readily, suddenly they find themselves with a large penalty that they can't really even explain in common sense terms, except that's the way it is in Big Rapids. And I'd hate to have them think that that was changing, because in effect, except for the magnitude of the penalty, it isn't changing. So I'd hate to have that circulate that, well, all bets are off, this is okay now. It's really not okay, and as Lynn said, we live in the same neighborhood. The behavior is certainly ever present.
Well, as Mr. Williams pointed out in his position paper to us, there was a period of time where alcohol and young people just was leading to some tragic consequences, and if the misdemeanor approach was a means by which the city sought to address and get people's attention, I think that was accomplished. But I also give credit to the university in addressing the issue, and I also think in looking to recruit what I might describe as a more responsible student population. And I think that has been reflected in a lot of ways, not the least of which we don't see some of what we did before. Plus, I have to believe that any student, be it at Ferris or any other university, is mindful of the cost associated with trying to obtain a college education. And if they're not borrowing to achieve that, parents are supporting, and I trust that most parents are, all parents are interested in how students are performing outside the classroom, and paying for a defense attorney to provide representation on a misdemeanor is not aiding in the cost of an education. That becomes payback time. I don't think that the vast majority who I believe are responsible will necessarily take notice or take advantage of what's being asked to make this a civil infraction. Those that are less responsible will still get caught by it, but the consequence is lessened, and I think rightfully so. And as Commissioner Rothstein points out, it certainly is something that can be looked at again if there's a spike in some rather untoward behavior, I'll say. Anything else? All right, we'll vote on this.
Rothstein?
Yes.
Warba?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Jorgensen?
Yes.
James?
Yes.